whether we like it or not. Clock is ticking.
What's the rush?
Because I'm worried that there's a very distinct and real possibility that I am about to fall in love with you.
You know, I got to see We Live in Time at the world premiere at the Toronto Film Festival, and I absolutely fell in love with this movie, with you and with Florence. What was it about the script that you fell in love with?
So I was in the middle of the beginning of a kind of, I don't want to say a midlife crisis, but definitely a beginning of a midlife exploration. I'd recently lost my mother. I'd recently made a lot of work that I was very proud of. I'd done theater and film and television, and I loved all the work I had done, and I was rather tired. And there was this strange experience I had when my mother passed that it was like half of my ambition and half of my understanding of what mattered in the world kind of died with her. And I decided to take a break and take some rest and look out the window and ask big questions. And it wasn't like I wasn't reading scripts, because if like someone wanted me to do a movie, I would have said yes. But it was like it was a semi-self-imposed sabbatical. And then John Crowley, who I'd made a film with, the second film I'd ever made, which is called Boy A, which is a very interesting little independent film from the UK. He had sent me a script. He had sent me this script, and it was dealing with the themes that I was just dealing with. It felt akin to a sculptor or a painter going into their studio and just making something based from the primal elements of their soul in that very moment. And it's very, very rare as an actor, obviously, that a script like that comes along that feels like is a map of your own heart in that very period of time. And it did feel as simple as kind of going into an adjacent room with a bunch of collaborative artists and sculpting something together. But the difference this time was these are the questions that I'm currently asking in this stage of my midlife exploration.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like if this movie had come along 5 years ago, you would have probably had a different approach.
Yeah, I don't think I would have been ready for it. I don't think I would have felt like it was my story to tell somehow, or I would have felt the responsibility should be given to someone else. But in that moment, it was one of those horrible feelings of, oh God, I got to do this, don't I? This is something that I have to do. I have to explore this. I have to bring, my heart and soul to this story, because I really do feel like I could serve it. So that's how I tend to approach whether or not I go to work. Am I the person that can serve this character to its potential, or intend to anyway?
There's something to be said about coming full circle with working with John again. There's two elements here that allow you to go to a safe place where you can really give a raw, intimate performance. One is John, the other is Florence Pugh. Yeah. So how did the two of you really hit it off, so to speak, so that you could both go there?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a three-pronged relationship. I think that the intimacy that was created and the trust and the chemistry that was created, it required the three of us. And it really kind of started with John. It started with John providing a container and a space for us to feel safe to fail, to feel safe to be naked and vulnerable in all of the ways that these two characters require. And then in terms of Florence, it's so strange because Florence is such a young actor, and I always forget that because of the gravitas that she has and because of the maturity that she has as a person and as a performer and as an artist, and the wisdom. She's a strange, wise creature, and I kind of forget how young she is. I think she's barely 28, which is insane to me that she's in her 20s. And so it's really a kind of a testament to her, I don't know.
Soul.
Yeah, an old soul and an ability to, I don't know, there's a generosity there as well. And I think both of us required that from the other, particularly when we're off camera for the other, or particularly when one of us is flagging and the other one isn't. Like, it was a strange thing after the screening we had in Toronto where we premiered. Florence wasn't able to come to the little drinks gathering we did afterwards. and because she was incredibly jet lagged and tired and felt a little sick. So I kind of held down the fort for the both of us, like I'm doing right now. Actually, there's a pattern here. So I'm just realizing as we speak. But it was a strange sensation, and it's a sensation that's continued when I haven't been with her while promoting it or while receiving people's response to the film, good or bad, but mostly good. Everyone's nice. And it was so odd being at this party without her, because it felt like we should have been kind of conjoined at the hip, because it doesn't feel like two performances to me. It feels like one. It feels like the two actors creating a third thing, which is the relationship. It feels like a very, very true relationship film, and that any other two actors who would have played these parts would have made something completely different. And I think that's the beauty and the magic of Nick's script, and hopefully this film, is that it's the third thing. It's sure, it's the daughter, but it's also this third entity, which is the relationship that feels like the star of the film. And hopefully, because we go into such detail about the relationship, it becomes everyone's version of this style or type of romantic partnership, whether it's been lived or longed for. I think there's something quite universal about these two people.
For sure, and this kind of movie is what they call in the business a two-hander, because most of the film is really just you and Florence, and there's a couple scenes that get very, very real. The I want to have kids, well I don't, a conversation which I just love, and the conversation near the end of the film. So with prepping for scenes like that, how much do you stick to the script? How much does John inspire you to just like go for it? And how much of that just comes out of magic just from the chemistry that you have with Florence?
Yeah, I mean, the script is very tight. The writing that Nick does and did for this is kind of watertight. So there wasn't need for improvisation or invention, really. We did a couple of rewrites before. There was a few things that I wanted to work on, because my concern in reading it was that Tobias could be a little wet. And I didn't wet as in, maybe that's a British thing. It's like a little drippy, like a drip. like that's fine. A little drippiness is fine, but like it can't be spineless jellyfish drip all the time. There has to be a backbone. There has to be a spine. There has to be a boundary setting. There has to be a self-respect. Otherwise, how is she going to respect him? So in the original script, there was a couple of opportunities to enhance that, because he's such a beautifully sensitive man. But it was important to me within that sensitivity that there was still a very strong, self-respecting man in there. The scene in the petrol station where we have to kick the door down to access her before she gives birth. In the script, I'm working on the door, and it's actually the female petrol station attendant that kicks the door down ultimately. And I said, oh gosh, that's drippy of me. And I said, can we explore a moment where Tobias is filled with the strength of 1,000 lionesses? And like you hear about stories of like mothers suddenly getting the power to lift a whole car off of their crushing child. I was like, I think we need a moment like that where we are surprised by who this man has within him. And the same with other certain moments when he shows up at the baby shower of Florence's sister and says, you were rude and you don't get to talk to me that way. That felt very important to kind of establish. But no, and then in terms of the filming of the more intensely emotional scenes, we kind of locked in pretty quickly. The first one of those scenes we shot was in week 1, and it was it's landed quite near the beginning of the film. It's the scene in the parking lot where Florence says to me, what if I said I didn't want to do this again? I couldn't do it again. Not like, what if we just had 6 great months rather than 10 shitty, awful, toxic body ones. And that was, I think, the moment where both of us realized that we could travel to lots of different places together without kind of forcing things. It was very exciting to find each other in that very scene, because it's obviously so much going on internally, and I think she felt very, very held, and like I would go wherever she would lead, and I would listen attentively, and I was, you know, I think I don't know if other actors are in the room right now, but like one of my favorite things to do on a film set is to be off camera, because you're not worried about how you're doing. You're just absolutely there to support your fellow actor, and it feels so much more free. And I'm probably doing much better work off camera than I'm doing on camera, because all of my attention is really fully on my scene partner and trying to help them reach the potential of their talent and the potential of what the scene can be for them. And it's just you're outside of your own ego, I suppose. But yeah, those scenes were some of my most favorite. Those moments with Florence were some of my most favorite on the film.
Well, big thanks to you and to Florence and John for making a movie for all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here at tonight's Academy screening. We Live in Time. It's in theaters now. Spread the word. Have a beautiful night. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, brother.